Hello, this is Noreen Crone-Findlay from Crone-Findlay.com and ToddyTalksCrafts.com. Today I'm going to be doing part 2 of the video tutorial for weaving inkle bands on Mirrix looms, inkle or warp face bands, whatever you prefer to call them. So part 2 is putting the heddles on and starting the weaving. Now I'm just going to show you my earls and lift the camera up and over. Now Crone-Findlay.com is my website where my designs and patterns are available for purchase, and ToddyTalksCrafts.com is where I post on my blog all the support material for these video tutorials. Now I have placed a piece of masonite between in the middle of the loom, so that I'm not confused by the warp strands that are passing over the back of the loom. And I want to just arrange the camera so that you can see how I use shed sticks for opening the sheds, for putting the heddles on more easily. Now I preload 2 fingers of my left hand with the heddles that I'm going to need, and I'm going to be using a shed stick, there we go, and a crochet hook to put the heddles on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shed stick and I'm going to open the first, oh sorry, I have a small dog who's indulging in some recreational barking, which I'm sorry, but what can I say, that's just what he's doing. Okay, so I'm going to push back one strand and lift one forward. So to open my shed, I'm just pushing back and lifting forward so that I get one shed open. Just want to check and make sure that's right. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Yes, that looks good. So I should have 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, in this particular, this is not the same band that I warped in the first video. This is on the Big Sister loom. So I've got my heddle bar placed here, right in front of my open shed. It's held open. Okay, the shed stick just popped shut. Okay, so it's held open by the shed stick. Now I'm going to take my crochet hook and reach behind the first heddle, the first warp strand, and lift a heddle off my fingers. And now I need to arrange the knot so that the knot has to be on the heddle bar, because if the knot is back near the warp strands, it's going to get tangled, and that's not going to be a happy thing. So I reach behind the warp strand and I catch one of the heddles off my fingers, and both loops are now on the crochet hook. I open them up to slide them both onto the heddle bar. So reach, pluck a heddle off my fingers and catch the second end, open it up, both ends onto the heddle bar. Next strand, reach behind with crochet hook, pick the heddle off my fingers, place it on both ends of the loop on the crochet hook, and now both ends on the heddle bar. Going to advance the heddle rod a little bit because I don't want those to be able to slip off. Okay, reach behind, pluck one heddle only. I've got 2 wanting to volunteer, and there we go. And bring that knot forward and place it onto the heddle rod. kind of stroke them back so that they can't pop off. You don't want one of your loops popping off, because then of course the warp strand is not captured. Okay, and on it goes. I've just dropped one of my heddles, so I always keep a couple hanging on the edge of the loom, and I'll pick it up off of there. Okay, there. So we now have all of our warp strands are captured, and I'm going to slide the bar into place, and just going to leave my shed stick in there. I'm just going to tighten the let's make sure that's in far enough, and tighten down the little nut that holds the heddle rod in position. There we go. Hopefully that's tight enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and turn my shedding device and slide that set of heddles down under the heddle, under the shedding device. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to open my next shed, and the way I do that is I'm going to pull on the first shed with these heddles to bring it forward so that the shed is open. But that's not the, I just stepped on the cord and unplugged a light. Sorry about that. And that gave me the opportunity to pick up the dropped heddles. Okay, so now I don't want to be putting heddles on these strands, because those are the ones I've already heddled. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my stick on its side. I'm going to reach behind and bring the strand behind forward, and I'm going to pass in front of the front strand, behind, and lift, slide the front one out of the way, lift from behind, slide out of the way, lift, slide out of the way, lift, slide one out of the way, lift, slide that front one out of the way, lift the last back one, and slide the front one behind the crochet hook. Now I'm pulling my shed stick out. I'm going to slip it in along the crochet hook and turn it, and that has opened shed 2. So I'm now going to open my heddle rod here. I'm just going to unscrew this little darling, and oh, by the way, I use a shed stick that's long enough to rest on the blocks from side to side, and because it's really nice to have it able to be supported. Okay, so I'm putting my heddles on my fingers, on 2 of my fingers, and oh, I didn't push my heddle rod back, so the heddle rod is out of the way somewhat, but far enough advanced that the loops are not going to pop off. So I lift my first warp strand and I pluck just, oh, these are sticking together. I pluck one loop off my fingers and bring the knot forward so that it's going to sit on the heddle rod, and then I place it on the heddle rod. Next warp strand, crochet hook behind, catch, lift, and adjust the knot and put it on the heddle rod. Then we're going to just repeat this across. Now, to make longer Inkle bands, the loom extenders allow you to make wonderfully long Inkle bands. So there's they're two threaded rods with a joiner thing, a coupler, and that allows you to, for your loom can lift right up then so that you can get much longer inkle bands, or much longer any kind of weaving on your loom. So I'm going around the warp strand so that, see, my heddles are going to move that little warp strand when I ask it to, and get the second half onto the heddle bar. I'm going to move my heddle bar along because the warp strands are in danger of lifting off. So here we go. There's our last warp strand of shed 2. And so now I'm going to push the heddle bar into place and use tighten the little lock nut down to hold my heddles in place. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to lift this one. I'm going to just check that that is giving me the shed that I want. And now I'm going to give myself a bit more tension. I'm going to tighten up, and I'm going to adjust the camera so that you can see the way I actually weave the inkle bands is to take the loom and have it, the top edge leaning on the desk and the lower edge in my lap, so that I can push down on the strands so that I get a really nice separation between the sheds that way, and it really goes quickly when I'm weaving. I need to put my shed stick, no, my changer thinger on. The handle goes onto the, finding that back, the back hole there is always challenging, I find. Hey, little darling, where are you? Yeah, the fold in there's that slight bend, which I find makes it ever so slightly baffling. There. Okay. So we're going to check our sheds. Yep, got a beautiful shed there, and push down, and beautiful shed there. Excellent. Okay, so now I just want to, I think I'll pull back a little bit more so you can see what's happening, because what's going to happen is I'm going to leave the loom vertical for now. But normally, like I said, I would take, for inkle weaving on the Mirrix, I always work with it flat. I just want to show you a few different inkle shuttles. Inkle shuttles are a breed unto themselves. This is one that my son-in-law made me 6 years ago. I just love it. He doesn't make them anymore, but isn't that beautiful? It's brass. Inkle, I'll trace this one in case you want to make it in wood, thin wood. Inkle shuttles have a long sort of blade that you use for beating, and then the yarn or thread goes on here. I always use, I really like to use, normally they say match your weft to the edge strands. I like to use a thinner weft than my warp strands, and one of my most favorite things to use is this upholstery thread, which I find the gray works quite wonderfully well for lots of inkle weaving that I'm doing. It blends in, you barely see it on the edge. This shuttle, this Inkle shuttle, is from Harrisville, and it's a lovely one. This one is from Shat, also a lovely Inkle shuttle, and it's beveled. And here is one from Leclerc. All three of these are very nice to use, and I quite love using these are rulers that I cut into they're sort of the shape of netting shuttles, and they're really nice to work with as well. So you have lots of choice for your Inkle weaving. You will beat with the edge of your shuttle when you're weaving Inkle bands. Now I'm just going to push things out of the way, and now I just want to point out we're going to start our weaving with the warping band. This is unusual that you do this, but your weaving is going to start with the warping band right down here at the lower edge of the loom. And when you want to advance, you will loosen off your tension and hold your springs so that they don't, because your spring, when you're advancing your band, your spring wants to come down and travel with it, and you really don't want that happening. Now, to start weaving, you're going to need some craft sticks. I weave both bands at the same time. I have two shuttles going, and I open the shed, I weave with one shuttle, put it down, pick up the second shuttle, and weave the second band with the second shuttle. Now, what you want to have the craft sticks for, hopefully you can see craft sticks. Okay, good. You're going to use them to get your sheds. Oh my goodness, my husband just walked out of the studio and left one of the little dogs behind, and he's just heartbroken. So we're going to open a shed and insert a craft stick in both, because we're going to be weaving with both bands at once. And if you didn't want to weave with two bands, it's okay, sweetheart. Your daddy will be right back. I know, it's tragic. So you'll insert a craft stick in the second one too. This one is a bit compromised, but that's okay. And now we'll change our sheds and push down. You push down and kind of stroke to open and put a second craft stick in. And this will allow you to push your warp strands together to make your band closer, and push down and stroke to open and insert your craft stick and push your band together. And you can see that, there we go. So now that you've got your band is pushed together, you can start weaving. So you will insert your shuttle, and you're just going to weave your Inkle band in the same way as any other weaving on your loom, with the exception being that what you're going to want to have happening is you're going to want your weft. Oops, I didn't change my shed. So change your shed, then stroke, and that will open your next shed. You're going to want to be beating down with your shuttle, and you're going to want your weft strands to pull in. And I'm not going to bother weaving this one right now because I can catch up afterwards. I just want to show you a couple of rows. So I'm going to start with my first shot of weft going through. I'm going to change my shed And what I get myself in the habit of doing is to stroke it with my shuttle, then put in my finger and beat. And at first your weft is going to want to pop out. So take your end from the first row through, back in the other direction, and pull on it, and pull your second row through, and you're going to weave in your ends. Whoops, this guy should be, is that correct? Yeah. So you'll weave in your ends and keep pulling up on you pull your warp through. Now, some people like to leave a loop of weft at the edge and then pull it through on their next pass. That is, that's a personal choice that you will make. If that works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. So I'm still passing my warp and my weft end goes in the opposite direction to my weft shot. And you can see it's pulling in nicely. So stroke with your shuttle, insert your finger, then beat your previous row, and weave merrily along. What you'll do, of course, is you will, as you weave both bands, to advance your warp, you release your tension, and then you slide your warp bar, and that will move your weaving. And I'm going to weave myself all the way around to the top so that when I come back to you, the warp bar will be sitting on top of the loom, because finishing, there's a little trick that you're going to have to do in order to finish your woven inkle bands. So that will be in video number 3, the finishing of the bands. So happy weaving, and I'll see you when my warp rod is on top of the loom, and I will have woven all the way around to the top there. So see you after I've done a little bit of